Today we'll be covering the bouncing ball exercise. If you stick with me to the end of the video, we'll be turning this into a bouncing head. Next week I'll be adding a ponytail to the bouncing ball, and we'll be covering secondary action. This is how mine turned out. So one of the first things to consider about the bouncing ball is think about what material it's made out of. Is it a rubber ball, a basketball, a golf ball, and how would it act depending on what kind of material it's made of? Would it bounce higher? Would it bounce longer? Would it hardly bounce at all? And that's just something to consider before we get started. Also, just keep in mind gravity and physics and that kind of stuff when you're animating. So as the ball bounces, it's going to decrease in speed. It's not going to bounce as high. And it will squish and squash less as it goes. And we need to make sure that we add that stuff in as we're going. So one thing that's really helpful if you're just starting out, or anytime really, if you want to improve your animation, is just look up some live action reference of what you're trying to animate. Maybe take a look at some slow motion videos on YouTube, or maybe act it out if it's a character acting. It might give you a better sense of how something's actually moving and how far you want to push that or exaggerate it when you're animating. Okay, so let's start by opening a new file. And then we're just going to name this scene. I'm going to go File, Import. I'm just going to import my background picture here. I just took some photos of my floor beside the computer. You could just use a stock photo or draw in your own background. Anything you want to do. Just holding down Shift as I rotate that so it will just kind of snap to the next major position. Okay, here's my photo. I'm just going to break this apart with Control-D and delete what I don't need so it's not lagging the computer for stuff we're not using. Okay, and now I'm going to turn this into a background symbol. And now we're turning it into the scene symbol. So if you go into the scene symbol, there's one more layer in here, and we're naming it background. Let's go back out for a second. You can extend the timeline for quite a few seconds here. Doesn't matter how long exactly, but maybe more than 6. And then go back in, do the same thing. I think I had done 7 there. Okay, and now we can lock the background and make a new layer and name it reference. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw this out. Okay, so let's draw a line on the stage, and this is the line where all your contact positions will match up for your ball, because you don't want to have the ball attempting to have it bounce in a straight line like this, and then have it bounce back here, and then forward and back. It's not what we're doing right now. We can just guide off this reference layer, and we're also going to just draw all over this for now. So the first thing we're going to do is draw out the arcs for where we want the bounces to go. So if the ball is starting in the air over here, at the top part of an arc, then we're just pick the position of roughly where we want this to land. And it does not have to be perfect. Even if this is more over exaggerated than how much you want it to squish, or your balls might start changing size, it's not going to matter at this stage. So one thought with this here, just one second. Imagine where the rest of this is. How far is this bounce? So you want this to decrease in size and power each time. I'm just cheating a little bit here. I turned this into a group by hitting Ctrl G just because I don't want it sticking to the paint over here. It's not the same thing as a symbol. Okay, and let's add another one. It's fine to make mistakes or decide to change things later at this stage. That's why we rock things out. So now I know if I want 4 bounces, this is way too big. So I just selected everything by clicking on the layer. And we're just going to scale it down some. I keep accidentally rotating. You can fix that by hitting the center frame button over there. Okay, that's looking better. This one's looking a little small though. I might have went a little overboard with decreasing each one. So just think about maybe making it lose about 1/3 of its power as it goes. Something like that. Seems fine, just as long as it's not losing power so quickly that you're thinking, whoa, something must have really slowed that down. What did the ball hit or run over? Since this is a pretty smooth looking floor in the picture, you don't really have to worry about that. It's not like you ran into carpet or something like that. Okay. That's alright. Okay, we can guide that one off too. And now we can, let's quickly plan out a bounce or two. So there's 2 things we need to think about. There's timing, which is how many seconds or how many frames it will take for each ball to bounce, which will need to decrease in time. How many frames will decrease as it bounces. And then there's spacing, which is where each drawing appears in a relationship to each other on the on the stage. So I think what we had here was, right, okay. So around 13 frames, we'll start with this. We can always make changes. Let's take about 13 frames to go from this position to this position down here. And then just think about, that was half a bounce. So the full bounce would have been about this long. And when it loses power, it's going to lose a couple frames every time it loses power. So let's just shrink this by about 4 frames. And make sure all your keyframes stay on odd number frames, just to keep everything organized. That way it also helps prevent problems where you have half your animation on even numbers and half your animation on odd numbers. If you play it back like that, it'll look really weird. So that's why we just keep it standard on all odd numbers. Okay, so these are going to be the keys. And the keys are usually the most important drawings. Usually it's like a change in direction or a change in action, or it's like the most important, it's the most important frames. So it's going to be, right now we're just going to consider the low point and the high points are keys. Actually, we're going to just go with the low points for now. Where is it contacting the ground? And then we're putting all the high points afterwards, just to keep it simple. Okay, so I'm going to doodle these in as we go, just so we don't get confused about what frames we're working on. There's the high point. And whenever it's up in the air at the high point, the ball isn't going to deform at all. It's going to be a perfect circle. And at the contact point, it's going to squish some. And it's going to squish from the bottom. So if you did have a perfect circle here, and you go to draw in the squish or add it in later, if you hold down Alt, holding down Alt will let you drag this down like this. And if you hold Shift, it will drag from the sides. So that way the bottom of this will stay in contact with the ground. Okay, so this is the next low point. Put the ball in there. And now we need to find out where roughly our next key goes. So we're just going to do this again, which is my preferred way to find out how we make that loser free frames rather than doing math on on what frame everything should come on. So it's another key. And now we just need to do one more. And this one ended up on an even frame. So we're going to just drag it back one more frame. Put in a new key here. There. And now we just have the little points drawn in. Okay, so roughly in the center of all this, I'm going to put a new break. We're going to put a breakdown, which is usually it's like halfway through the action or a really important, like the next most important pose in the action. It might tell you not just from point A to B where something's moving, but how is it moving. Like, is the arm coming up like this with the palm up? Is it coming up like this? Like, it will show you how that action is moving. And hopefully you can see that on the camera. In this case, it's just going to be how high is the ball going. And I'm going to use this onion skin instead, I think. I can't really see that too well. If you need to change the colors for your onion skin, it's just under preferences. So you can go here and pick something darker or lighter or more bright, depending on what you think might work better. Sometimes dragging the sliders also affect that. Okay, so we're just gonna draw in the middle point for all these. This one is going to be on the side here as it comes down. So for timing this section, you have like the main point and you have your bottom point. It's going to go faster as it comes down. But we're also going to have a drawing right here, right before the impact. So it'll be a little bit less squished here. You have that like the one right before the impact. So that one's frame 11. This one's gonna be frame 9. Frame 7 would be like about here. And then the rest of these are just gonna increasingly get closer together here. So for now we're just gonna leave this one in here roughly about there for the breakdown. And we can always move that later if we need to. Right, and now that you've started this, just go to File, Save. And it's good precaution to save everything fairly often because you don't want to have flash crash and lose everything halfway through this. Okay. So now we just have this so far. We're going to put in some of the more important drawings now as we go. So let's start with the second bounce and just start filling this out from the middle. So on the way up, like this, it's going to be slightly squished this way because we're just exaggerating how much it would deform from hitting the ground. And we're just going to go and say that this is probably a rubber ball that we're basing it off of, even if we are turning this into a head. So we're just going to put these ones in for now. You can see roughly where in the arc they go. And then we just need to remember that as they go further and further down the way, they're losing power. So they're going to stretch less. It's actually going to deform less here too, so this one will almost be a regular circular shape. And same with when it goes in the air, it's not really going to stretch too much. Okay, so let's just mark out where the breakdowns are, all the high points that we put in, just to keep everything pretty organized there so we know what we're looking at when we're looking at all those keyframes. You do this just by selecting a keyframe and then you go over to label and the name. Just type something in and hit enter. Next, I'm going to put in the stretchy frame that happens right before it contacts the ground. You can have this in one direction, so maybe whenever it's coming down above the contact, when it goes back up again, we don't do this again right here because it's going to look really weird if it goes like stretch, impact, stretch again. So it's going to do this, hit the ground, and then have a little bit of space as it powers out of that, and it goes quicker whenever it goes to bounce afterwards. And of course, as we're getting towards the end, it's going to be a regular circle almost as it comes down. So you can stretch it slightly, but I wouldn't stretch it too much. What I was doing with the symbol is I kept an eye on how much I stretched it to begin with. And in the properties panel, I went over here, there's a transform tool, which is under Window, Transform, then here, or Control P. You can see the information for how much you are stretching things one way and the other way over here. So I was just keeping an eye on making sure on the clean version that it does decrease as you go down. Okay. So let's fill in the rest of these in-betweens here. And just tweak anything here. Oh, I think we missed one. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So that belongs there. keep an eye out if you accidentally put anything on even frames, and then just make a choice on whether it should be to the right or the left of that frame that was on. So I'm going to turn on the onion scanning. This way I can see where the other spacing positions are. And for this, the ball is not going to deform too much at the top. It's going to be hanging in the air and then like slowly heading down as gravity sucks it in. It might start deforming on its way down. And we can also just play around with, if we made any mistakes here, it's a good time to fix them. So we can just see that we can add 2 more frames in. So let's just draw this out in a new frame. It might be easier. So this point here and this point here, and we need to add 3 more frames. So we can put one roughly here, here-ish, and maybe there. This is what we want to do. So we're just favoring the top of this arc. And then whenever this bounces again, that's going to be the next frame after that key, since we're not doing another squish on both sides of that main key. Okay, maybe just move that down a little bit. And then, so we need to add 3 more frames in between these. And we're favoring the top, so I just drew one roughly in the half. And then maybe one slightly more towards the top as you go up. And we can just leave that. And we're going to do the same thing on the way down. So if you've ever seen old-fashioned timing tricks like this for animation, they might have a frame number up here and a frame number down here. This is kind of what they're based on. So if you see this arc and it's going down like this, and you're saying, oh, well, I need to put, where are my drawings at? We got one here. We have one here and here. These are the places I need to put my drawings. It's just the same thing if you took this and you straightened it out up here. And just put like, oh, this is where one drawing is. Where another one is, that's another, and we got one right here before the impact that happens right here. So if you're ever curious about trying to read timing charts, that's just the gist of what they are. It's just a diagram explaining in a simple way, in a neat, tidy, simple way, what your timing is going to be. Or what your spacing is going to be, rather. So this one's going to be roughly here, and then we have one that's really close to that top one. I think that's a little too stretched. And I mean, that is also quite stretched. So as you play back the drawings, you can see that anywhere we put our drawings closer together, they appear to be moving slower at that part of the animation, and anywhere that there's more space in between them, it looks like it's moving faster. Okay, now we're just going to go back and test this out. You can turn off the arcs there. Let's take a look at how that's moving. And this is a good time to catch any major mistakes before we really get too much into the flash side of this. And then you can also just see is like, is it hanging too long up here at the top? Did I accidentally put some drawings too closely together so it looks like it just got frozen in time? Which is what I'm checking out right now. And you can just slightly adjust these to put a little bit more space in between them. If it looks like it just kind of got stuck or frozen in the air. Okay, and that's our roughs. I don't think we need that arc layer anymore. I'm just going to delete it. And same thing with that one too. Okay, now we're going to take the line tool and we're going to draw out where those arcs were with the line tool. And we can just do that by looking at where the positions of the keys are. So you can see right there, actually, you might be able to just do this. So now you can see where all those drawings are in the frames. And we're just going to draw a straight line going in between this. And basically just tracing the shape of the path that the ball is taking in the air. We're going to use this as a motion guide to help get some of the in-betweens done by the computer. If you need to straighten out any like little bumps like this, just select the line and go over here with this setting. You might not be able to just bend it into a perfect shape if it's a really big one. Like if you had a big round arc, you might need to divide it up into a couple lines to get that shape and then smooth it out afterwards. Okay, and guide this. We're gonna put the rough layer above it. And this one motion guide. And then make a new layer underneath and name this ball. we're finally going to make the symbol for the ball. So pick a color. It doesn't matter too much at this stage what color the ball is. If you hold down shift when you drag out your circle, it will make a perfect circle. And then you can select this, hit F8, name it ball. Make sure the pivot point is at the center. Make sure it's also a graphic symbol, and hit OK. And now, just to make everything easier for when we put a face on this, we're going to go into the ball layer, lock this, and then make a new one. And then just pick a color or whatever. And we're going to draw a really rough face on this right now. This way we know what direction, like if we rotate it at all, just to make sure it stays consistent, so then we can pop the face into it at the end of the video. And if you do want to make any changes as you go, you can. There we go. So that's the first frame. We're just going to start by putting in major positions. So there's frame 1, and then I made a new key at frame 13. And we're just going to match the bottom of the face up to that line that we made earlier. And then holding down Alt for up and down, hold down Alt, and then Shift for side to side. You can get it to match it pretty well. I'm going to use the transform panel just to edit this a little bit and maybe do like (110 by 90). We don't want it to look like it's made out of like goop or something like that. It's just to make sure it doesn't transform too much. And let's put a new keyframe in that frame 33. Hold in shift and just drag this along so it stays in the same position against this line. And we're just going to adjust this so it's not such a strong squish on it. Maybe 107 by 93. I'm just trying to keep these proportionate to each other. And then new frame over here. Then 103 by 97. And this last one here will just be back to its original shape. So it will be, you can type in 100 by 100, or you can hit Control-Shift-D, and that will reset it to the default shape and size. So just double check that the bottom of your ball is just connected with right here against this line. There. Now we're going to put the breakdowns in. So hit Control-Shift-C. Sorry, let's go back a few steps. We're going to put a keyframe in on your breakdown. Hit Control-Shift-C. And then just put this at the top of the arc. And I'm going to hold down Alt and drag this over to where your other breakdowns are. And then we can just adjust this so it's on the other arcs that it's supposed to be at. It's also a good time to label these keyframes before we add too many more and get confused about what's going on. Okay. Now I'm gonna start by adding the next most important drawings. So we're just gonna stretch this one out a bit and take a look with the onion skinning to see where your other drawing that comes right after the next keyframe is and the relationship to this one. We're going to do this at a couple places. Also, just keep reminding yourself that it's not going to stretch as much each time. You can also just adjust the green layer here, the motion guide, that we don't have turned on yet. So if you're noticing that the pivot point on the face is up here, you can just move this up to adjust it and smooth out this line. Select everything except for the motion guide to fix this. Just select that chunk there, straighten it out, and then put it into an arc shape again. This is getting a little wobbly. So we're just matching this up to where the pivot point in the face is. Which is a little bit higher than the base of the ball. We also might just need, it's possible that you might just need to take that out and redo it. If it gets a little wobbly like that. Okay, let's lock that up again. Now we're going to, right, so we're going to connect the ball to the motion guide, which will start making things easier. So just click on the ball, make sure your motion guide is this layer here, the green one with the arcs on it. So make sure that's right above the ball and that you have it guided, and then drag the ball up into it and it'll snap on like this and become a motion guide. If you're having trouble with this, the other way you can just do that is right click and go to properties, and then you can also just change it to motion guide in the properties here. At least usually you could. They keep changing things with each Flash update, so I'm not always up to date on where exactly these things have gotten to. Okay, so let's start filling in some more of these drawings, and I'm just going to go with the ones that are the most deformed, and then let the computer fill in the ones that are the least deformed. So this is slightly stretched. If we turn on this lock button down here, snap to objects, we can just snap the face onto this line now. Just do this 90 the frames we've already done. And if it's getting confused by those rough drawings, you can just turn them off. It was trying to snap onto those. Okay, and now I'm going to turn that back on and turn off that magnet snap button. So we're just going to fill in some of these. Specifically the ones right around where it's bouncing like this, because we're going to just do that one by hand. We don't really want the computer fiddling around with that for us. Sometimes it doesn't realize how much things should like squish and stretch, and it will fill it in kind of weird. So I just, oh wait, not everyone will have this tools panel over here, the tweens panel. That's a special add-on that you can buy. But you can do basically the same thing over in the properties panel. Just create a classic tween, select the tween, and go over here to ease out, and then you can test out whether you want quad or cubic, depending on what it looks like. I think cubic is roughly the same as what I had there in that other panel. And now that we have that motion guide there, Flash now knows that this should be moving on a curve, like this. And that's the whole purpose of that. It will tell it where to go. So I'm just finishing up the drawings I wanted to do by hand. This one we can create a classic tween. Just double click there to make it work. And on this side, we're going to go create a classic tween, select that tween, put an ease in on it. So the ease out will make it get, the drawings will get closer together towards the next key, which is this one. So it'll go from fast to slow, and the ease in will go from slow to fast, going this way, in between these two keys. So we're just giving it some hang time up at the top. We can just go in by hand later and adjust that a little bit more, do some more fine tuning, depending on whether or not we like exactly what the computer just automatically stuck there. So we're just doing another classic tween. Putting these in. And we need one over here still. I just had to double check that that was snapped on there. So anytime you need to check if this symbol is attached to the motion guide, you can just turn on the magnet tool and fiddle around with it until you feel it snap on. So create a classic tween, just like this. And then put a ease in, cubic. So that should cover most of the bounce now. It's hanging a little weirdly at the top, so we're just gonna have to fix that by hand a little bit later. Okay, and create a classic tween with an ease in. Just like tween. And that's the start to the bouncing ball. Select anywhere you get tweens, hit F6, and you can either remove your classic tween like this and take out every second keyframe to put on twos. It's one way to do it. Or if you have a key command, you can do the same thing and put on twos where it will automatically do it for you. There are a couple of different plugins that do that. If you look at the Trigger Script plugins, you might be able to find something that does that. I've been using this one for a long time. And there's also one that's a timing chart. It looks like a traditional timing chart, like this. And it will also have an on-to setting. I think it's on TuneMonkey. I might have mentioned it in the video I did about installing the extensions, but I'm not sure. Maybe somewhere to check. If you're interested though, let me know in a comment and I can look it up for you. Okay, so we're just gonna fix some of this where it's kind of sticking a little bit too much at the top. You can just put the motion guide to see through and select guide again, and guide again to guide it off like the other ones so we can't see it when we go outside of this symbol. But we want to have it in outline mode right now, just so we can have a look at how everything's lining up. So with this tool on down here, the magnet setting for the snap, I'm just gonna put a little bit more space in between some of the drawings. That's part of the problem that we're having there. If you can see how close together these three got, it almost made it look like it was paused. It paused in midair. So we're just going to smooth this out a little bit. We still want these three to be kind of closer together than the other frames at the top. But we still want it to make sure it doesn't look like it's getting smelled out. And for any of these frames here where this impact is happening, it's perfectly fine not to have it connected to this line if it looks better not being connected. Just make sure that it matches up, that it's still in this nice curve with the other frames, and that's what really is important. Okay, that looks better now, so it's not getting stuck at the top. And then some other things to consider now when you're just troubleshooting is it squishing enough whenever it comes down? And is this frame like placed in a good spot? Maybe it's not squishing enough. Especially if you're going for something that's supposed to look like a rubber ball. So it's always fine just to make little corrections as you go or after the fact. Like here, it looks like it's not really moving quite right, and we might want to get this closer to the key. And this one could also be stretching a little bit. Since it's not just going to be going from perfectly straight to suddenly stretched, it's probably going to be a in-between point. So now it looks a bit more like a bouncing ball. The other thing you can adjust with the spacing is if it doesn't look like it's getting enough power, you can always try moving the frames at the top of the arc, just like spacing them a little bit closer together to give it like a little bit more travel space here. Because just remember, the further apart your drawings are, the faster it will look like it's traveling faster on this section and then slower at the top. There we go. It's a little bit more rubber ball-like. And that's also why spacing is very important. It's not always just saying like, oh, it's not moving fast enough. Maybe I need to change where the frames are hitting on the timeline. It might actually just be how you space them and how dramatic the difference is between the slow parts and the fast parts. Okay, so now that that's working, we're going to put in the rest of your face, since this is probably not how we envisioned it looking. You can, just to make things easier, I'm just going to make a copy of that frame, go up to the top or to a new layer, paste it, and we can just put it in the middle of the frame and hide everything else for now. Give us some space to work with. And this one, we're going to delete afterwards anyway, so you can make it bigger if you need to, anything like that. And it will change how all your other bouncing balls look, since these ones are all connected. See? Okay, so you can turn this into your own face, you could turn it into a dog, anything like that, or a fox. It depends on you. Just remember, next week we're adding a tail or a ponytail or something to this. So if that changes your ideas, then just consider that. Okay, maybe I'll make this one a fox. I'm just gonna draw a little face in, maybe at least the line tool. And it never hurts to get a little reference. If you're just wondering, oh, what color, what shape, that kind of thing, just to make sure it looks like what you're trying to make it. It is going to be a cartoon fox, so it may not look exactly realistic here. And it's possible it'll just look like an orange dog. Oh, the other neat thing about Flash, one second. So if you open up your reference and you just want to color pick off a photo, you can just do that by clicking on the fill color and dragging your mouse right over to the picture, and you can color pick right off of it. And let's add some eyes. So if you want to do an extra kind of neat thing with this, you can extend the timeline in here for the character. This is just the nose and the mouth. We'll make a new layer and name it eye. We'll make another new layer. We'll do the other eye. And we can make the fox blink as it bounces across the stage if we want. It also brings me to the question of what color are the eyes? So maybe a brown. Oh my. Or you could give it little black beady eyes too if you wanted, I guess. Just whatever really looks good. Turn that down for the line. Okay. So we made an eye. I'm going to hit F8. Name this eye. And then we're going to just copy this, paste it in place, and move it over to the other side of the face. And okay. Let's just make this one eye first with the blinks, and then we'll use that to make the other one. So we have the regular position where it's open. We're just going to make a new keyframe and make it start to close. Just 1 second. It might be easier using the line tool to cut across the paint and then just drag it into a closing position. And then we're just going to drag this over and make the close position. just going to make it open again. Maybe let's use this. There, now it blinks. And this one is exactly the same right now since we just made a copy. We're going to make this one a little bit smaller by hitting Control-Alt-S and then see what 90% smaller looks like. Since it's a 3/4 view and it's in perspective, this side will just appear a little bit smaller. If we want to make it 5% bigger than that, we can just go to 105. So in the end, you can also just look over here too and see how big it is compared to the other one. There, and now we have two eyes that will blink. We want these set to single frame on both of them, because we don't want it just blinking like on and off across the whole timeline. We want it only to blink when we tell it to. And in the name of this being a fox, I think I'm going to add I might add some ears drawn in here. But the ears kind of go along with secondary action in the tail. So I'm not going to animate them right now. Let's just make them really low and say that they're not catching a lot of drag off of the air. Okay, I'm copying the circle from the base layer. I'm going to paste it on the ear layer and just put in color there. I'm going to get rid of that afterwards. Actually, let's just take this whole thing, put on this layer. Oops. There we go. I just put this all together as one base layer. And now, oh, that looks weird. Not sure I should have taken that out. Maybe I'll just leave these in. That was an accident. It might have been better earless. Okay, we're just going to leave that line in. It looks like it doesn't have much structural integrity without it. And I don't really want to spend forever perfecting this cat fox thing. I've changed my mind and decided to make the eyes bigger. I think this is slowly becoming a dog, actually. So why not? There, it is now a cute dog. Okay. To make the eyes blink, and as I said, you can just delete that version once you're done with it and turn back on the ball layer. So you can see it's now the dog's head. And we're just going to make this blink as it's bouncing. So what we want to do is, on a blank layer, find out where all the impact positions are, which would be these keys here. And I just mark them out by throwing a blank keyframe on them. And I'm going to select the whole layer, right click and go to copy frames. And I'm going to go back inside the dog layer. You can either go to like one that looks normal or squish position, it doesn't really matter. And paste this in. And now everywhere that you see one of these blank keyframes, you're just, excuse me, go to make a new, like just go and make a new keyframe on these. And then change each one to this close shape. Actually, we're just gonna, let's just do the first one. We can just paste those, make copies and paste them. So we're gonna change this to the closed frame where the blank keyframe is. And then the one before that, we're going to put the slightly open one. And the one after, where the eye is opening again. And then we're going to go back to the open position. So we want it to blink and have this frame here match up with this frame here, and that one and that one. So I'm just going to copy all this, hold down Alt, select it from where the blank keyframe is, and drop it where this blank keyframe is for each of them. And now your dog should blink at the right time. And delete that blank layer afterwards. Just 1 second. Oh, and it's, excuse me, it's not blinking, and there's a reason for that. I'm going to fix it now. So if you look at the first frame here of the dog, it set the loop at 0, 1. And if you click on this one, they're all set the loop 0, 1. So what it's doing is displaying the first frame over and over and over. What we want to do is select this layer here, right click and select synchronize frames. And it should synchronize all the frame numbers, so the same frame number that is up here is playing over here on the inside of the head. And that should be all that you need to fix that with. If for some reason it's still not working, check to see if you have it set to play single frame instead of loop or play once. It should probably be set to play once, but loop also works since you have plenty of frames on the inside of the timeline that you don't have to worry about playing 12 frames and then looping on the inside. If you have it set to single frame, it's only going to play 1 frame, so just make sure you check that out. And that should be everything. So if you look at it with the background, we now have a dog that bounces, and next week we're add a tail to that. So if you have any comments, questions, tutorial requests, please let me know in the comments. Let me know how this went if you did this tutorial, and feel free to subscribe for any more tutorials. And I hope to see you in the next video.